KTM have just entered into voluntary administration. That means that KTM have woken up, realized they've pooped the bed, and that things have got very serious financially. So serious that they've got 90 days to come to an agreement with everyone that's loaned them money to sort out their dire financial circumstances. So that's led a lot of people to ask the question, are we ever going to see the 390 Adventure R on the showroom floor? And will we even see KTM and the rest of their brands on the showroom floor moving forward? It's a very serious question, and we need to look at this closely because it is a distinct possibility, and we need to have a look and dive deep into this to see what the hell is going on. First off, got the glasses on. I'm just out of hospital. I've had surgery on the sinuses. I'm a couple of days out of hospital, so I'm a bit groggy. The sunnies are on because it looks like I've done a couple of rounds with Tyson and it's not a great look. So we've just got updates again on KTM's financial situation, and it has got worse. The nosedive has got so bad that KTM have had to go into self-administration. It's basically KTM have realized that they can't pull out of this nosedive themselves. They've had to raise their hand and get help, get a professional pilot to come in and try and pull them out of this nosedive because they aren't able to meet the obligations to the debt that they owe. So they've basically put up their hand saying to the court, look, we need 90 days to try and figure out how to pay our debt so that the people we owe money to don't come around and break our kneecaps. And that's where we're at. KTM are now in the process of renegotiating those debts. I've seen some channels already saying KTM has gone bust and it's all over. While it is extremely serious and we should be very concerned, and the next 90 days are the most important 90 days ever for KTM, this isn't them going bust. They can still fix this.
It's just a little airborne. It's still good, it's still good.
So the difference between going bust and administration is administration and it's self-appointed. So that's the better of administrations to go into. So self-administration is when you raise your hand saying, I can't meet my debt obligations at the current requirements. I need 90 days to negotiate with my lenders and restructure things so that I can pay them back. The other option is the court comes in and does that for you. That's a much rougher experience. KTM is in the least worst scenario here, but it is still very serious. So with 90 days to renegotiate their payment terms with all their big lenders, the big question that comes out of all of this is how the hell do they pay that money? Where does it come from, or who does it come from? So the two big ones that I've seen media articles talking about, of course, is Bajaj Auto. I think that is possible, but it's not the likely scenario here. Bajaj Auto have said they can't help out. So let's take that at face value and assume that Bajaj Auto aren't coming to the rescue this time for the Pira Mobility Group. Second one I've seen suggested is that Red Bull will come to the aid. They are a long-standing sponsor and collaborator with KTM. It's no secret. Stefan Pierre, or Stefan Pira, however you want to pronounce his last name, he has officially stated that Red Bull are not coming to the rescue here. So I think we can also scratch that off the board unless you don't take him at his word. Now, that is where the speculation has ended in most of the media discourse I have seen, and that's a shame because there's a big obvious one standing out. And the Pira Mobility Group already stated this in their emergency report to shareholders a few months ago that we went over in a video, where they talked about strengthening ties with China and they wanted to increase their relationship with China. So with that tidbit there, I think that is enough to go on to say that they're probably going to look for liquidity from China and none other than CFmoto. CFmoto own 51% of KTM in China, but they only own 2% of the Pira Mobility Group. This could happen a couple of ways. CFmoto could agree to purchase more shares of KTM, therefore giving them the liquidity to then go and pay their debt obligations. Or they could just, based on the good relationship that they've had, say, yep, we're going to help you out with a loan on agreeable terms to help you pay off your existing debt. Pira Mobility Group have not confirmed this. CFmoto have made no indication that this is going to happen. And of course, the fourth option is we just have someone outside of the ecosystem completely that surprises everyone, that either wants to help out with the loan, because of the terms are just too good to walk away from, or they want a stake in the motorcycle industry and they'll either get in now and get some shares and help KTM out, or they'll wait until KTM are on their knees and maybe buy them out with a controlling interest, and hey presto, you're in the motorcycle game. So just to put this in context, this is very serious. KTM could go under here, but there is still a decent chance that this could be worked out and that they could claw themselves out of this problem. And even if it does all end up in poo-poo, it could be that someone else comes in, snaps up KTM and all of its conglomerates, and comes in with fresh new ideas and fresh new money, and everything starts running tickety-boo again. I think if KTM managed to pull out of this nosedive, they are able to come to terms with their creditors and they're able to get back to some kind of equilibrium and everything's functioning, they're not in damage control, I think that's when we'll get an announcement on the 390 Adventure R. I think that would be a very positive thing for KTM because it would allow them to show, hey, we're still moving forward. We've got this bike that everyone wants. It would be a great announceable for KTM, or on the other hand, they get an emergency loan from outside sources. In that circumstance, we'll see the 390 Adventure R because basically they'll be chomping at the bit to announce it just so they have some positive news and they know that people will come in their droves for this bike because this is the size of bike and purportedly the weight and performance bike that everybody wants because it's light, it's got enough power from the highway but light enough for the technical stuff. It works as a worldwide bike as well. So this will work in the West because it can still do our high-speed highways, but it will also work in places like India where they like smaller bikes as well as a lot of the Asian market where they all skew to very small bikes. I think this bike will be an absolute hit if it ever reaches the showroom floor, and I think KTM know that as well. So if it even looks a little bit positive, I think KTM will jump on the chance to move forward with this bike. So in that way, I think this bike will be the canary in the coal mine. If we don't hear anything about this bike and we're suddenly hitting April, May, June, and you've heard nothing, I think that is really going to be a concern, not only for the fact that we probably won't see this bike reach the showroom floors, but also that KTM have not been able to either secure more investment to pay their existing debts or come to an agreement to renegotiate the repayment amounts on their current debt. So I'd love to have more positive news for you and say, oh, it'll all be fine, it'll work out. But there definitely is a lot going on and it's serious enough that not only could we not see the 390 Adventure R, but we could also not see KTM in the near future. I don't think either of those scenarios are the most likely, but they're definitely possible. You have to entertain all possibilities when you're considering these things. But to end on a positive note, KTM and Bajaj Auto put an awful lot of R&D into this bike. So it seems like a lot of wasted money if they don't do everything in their power to get this to the showroom floor. So I think that KTM will sort all these problems out because there's too much money involved for them to just disappear. I think it all will be worked out. It's just a question of how rocky it will be and what those terms are and what KTM looks like when they come through it. Because KTM need this and they need it bad. They need not only the positive coverage, the attention, but they also need the sales figures as well. And of course, our hard-earned money. And I, for one, would really love to see this bike because it's high on my list for my next off-road motorcycle. So I'm watching this very closely because it has dropped it down my list a little bit, because if it does make it to the showroom floor, not only will I be watching KTM like a hawk to make sure that they're financially stable before I commit my money to this bike, but it's also a relatively new bike. The motor is a known quantity, but the rest of the pieces, a lot of it is new. So I really do want to see how it goes and how early adopters find the reliabilities. It has bumped it down the list a little bit with all this turmoil, but I'm still very excited to potentially see this for 2025. Fingers crossed that KTM make it through this and that we see this 390 Adventure R, because boy, have we been waiting too long to see this motorcycle on the showroom floor. There's too many people that are far too excited and want this bike in their garage for this to all go up in flames. I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen? And I'm going to end with a famous quote by Benjamin Disraeli. I live by this creed. It's how my brain operates. And that's hope for the best, but expect the worst. And that's to say, it could go either way. You've got to be prepared for both scenarios here. A great way to end this video on the 390 Adventure R and on the Pira Mobility Group. Hope for the best, but expect the worst. And as always, don't forget to stay shiny side up.